Hello, and welcome to another meeting of the Lotus Council. So what do we have today? We've got an Oathbreaker deck tech. So I opened a couple of sealed boxes. The first draft box, we built a commander deck. The second one, we're building an Oathbreaker. So if you're not familiar with Oathbreaker, you pick a Planeswalker to serve as your commander, and then they have a signature spell. So in this case, I've got Tasha the Witch Queen, Deadly Dispute. So that's actually going to be a really strong pairing, I think, because you sacrifice an artifact or a creature and you draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. So kind of helps pay for itself. If you're not familiar with it, you get the commander text. So the commander, each time you cast it from the command zone, or the Oathbreaker tax, I guess we should call it, you pay an additional 2. Same for the signature spell. Each time you cast it, it's an additional 2. But creating treasure tokens. So let's talk about the deck. So we got a Rosello Rail Kingpin. It's a 2/5 with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, you take the initiative. This is that new dungeon thing where on your upkeep, you venture into the dungeon. So whenever you attack, target attacking creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. If you've completed a dungeon, that creature also gets +5/+0 and gains first strike and menace until end of turn. Really, really strong creature. Then we've got Ravenloft Adventurer. Again, taking the initiative. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile and put a hit counter. And whenever it attacks, if you've completed a dungeon, defending player loses 1 life for each card they own in exile with a hit counter on it. So I'm doing a little bit of an initiative thing with this deck. Okay. So other creatures, let me just... Sorry, I forgot to sort that. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've got Val, Candlekeep Researcher, Vigilance, tap to add an amount of colorless equal to the toughness. You can't use it to cast spells from your hand. That's right. So basically adding 3 mana, which you can use for your signature spell and your Oathbreaker. I think this is going to be one of those cards that people are going to realize is really good in Oathbreaker, as well as Commander, because you can basically pay for the Commander tax 1.5 times with this. Unless you start pumping this creature, and then you can add more. Then we got Tombs of Horror Adventure. So it's an elf monk, and when it enters the battlefield, take the initiative. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy it. If you've completed a dungeon, copy that spell twice instead. You may choose new targets for the copies. Ooh, that's a great one. So we've got Viconia, Drow Apostate at the beginning of your upkeep. If there's 4 or more creature cards in your graveyard, return a creature card at random from your graveyard to your hand. It's one of those with the choose a background. That's not important. So then we got Severus, the Nightmare Speaker. You sacrifice another creature or artifact for each opponent. You mill a card, then return a card from your graveyard to your hand unless that player plays 3 life. So Oathbreaker, it's not the 40 life. So this might be a little bit good. Then we've got Safana, the Kalimport Cutthroat. It is a 3/2 with Menace at the beginning of your end step. If you have the initiative, create a treasure token. If you completed a dungeon, create 3. You might see the theme with the dungeons. All right, we got Intellect Devourer. So when it enters the battlefield, each opponent exiles a card from their hand until Intellect Devourer leaves the battlefield. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled with Intellect Devourer. If you cast a spell this way, you may spend mana of any, as though it were mana of any color to cast it. Basically, you're stealing cards from your opponents. Really good. So then we got some of the background. So we got Sword Coast Sailor, Commander Creature's Own. Whenever this creature attacks a player, I needed to round out. It doesn't really work for the Oathbreaker, though. And then again, another Commander Creature, 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 another Commander Creature. So those wouldn't necessarily be useful. One of the upgrades, though, that I was thinking of adding to this deck after I, have it from the sealed is use Luxior. You put that sword on Tasha, and suddenly you're attacking, and all of these things now matter. So it's one thing that I was thinking about doing. I could go the other way and just remove them completely, but, I think the backgrounds are fairly strong. And so that is an upgrade that I want to make to this deck after it being out of the sealed pool. So that's why I kind of put those in there, because I was thinking ahead towards that. So we also have Kindred Discovery. It enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever a creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield or attacks, draw a card. So kind of a fun card. Then we got Dream Fracture. Counter target spell, controller draws a card, and you draw a card. Eldritch Pack. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, where X is the number of cards in their graveyard. Could be good later game to get a little bit of advantage. Exile target creature, put X +1/+1 counters on a commander creature, again, with the idea that I'm going to turn this Planeswalker into a creature in the next iteration of this deck. We got Cast Down, destroy target non-legendary creature, a classic. Charcoal Diamond for a little bit of ramp. Call to the Void. Each player secretly chooses a creature they control and a creature they don't control. Then those choices are revealed. Destroy each creature chosen this way. Kind of fun. So Fraying Line, when it enters the battlefield, put a rope counter on target creature you control at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player may pay 2. If they do, they put a rope counter on a creature they don't control. Otherwise, exile Fraying Line, and each creature without a rope counter on it, then remove all rope counters from all creatures. Yeah, so basically you have to keep putting rope counters on things to save them. There's a really nasty combo with this and the Kaldheim Vorinclex. Yeah. Blade of Self. Subscript creature has Myriad. Whenever it attacks for each opponent other than defending player, you may create a token that's a copy of that creature that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Exile the tokens at the end of combat. Definitely don't want to put that on a legendary. And of course, Sky Diamond. Manifold Key. I really like this third one. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Swiftfoot Boots. Wayfarer's Bauble. Basilisk Collar. Death Touch and Lifelink. Really useful. Mind Stone. It's got the 50% tap rule, as well as to the secondary ability to pay 1, tap, sacrifice it, draw a card. Stone Speaker Crystal, again, tap to add 2. It's a 50% mana rock. You can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice it to exile any number of target players' graveyards, and draw a card. Rug of Smothering. I've talked about this one a little bit. I like it. It does die to bolt, so you'd bolt the carpet. Yeah. But whenever a player casts a spell, if they lose 1 life for each spell they've cast this turn. So if you got somebody that's trying to combo off and do infinite combos, yeah, it puts a stop to that. So if you've got a way to protect this from your opponents, you can do some good things. All right, mana base. So Evolving Wilds, Seagate, Black Dragon Gate, Gone Gate. To control, enter the battlefield on tap. Really good card. Basilisk Gate. Basically, you can pump up a creature based off of the number of gates you control. So more gates is better. Good old Command Tower. Heap Gate. Basically making treasures. And then Baldur's Gate. Adding X mana of any one color, where X is the number of other gates you control. So we have a fair number of gates, and then filling out with islands and swamps. So kind of a rough draft of an Oathbreaker deck. The issue with a Commander heavy set is that it's all about Commander creatures. Even though there are Commander Planeswalkers in here, it makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to use that to get the deck to work. So thankfully, we were given a really great card in the form of Luxior, which is a lot cheaper than it was initially. I'm going to put the price up on the screen here so you can see what it is currently as of the filming of this video. Don't sleep on that card. Buy that card. It happens every set. So you get like the really super fancy cards and people are all stoked about them and they're buying them and they're playing them. And then the next set comes out with their next fancy cards, and people forget all about that card. And so the previous cards, they could drop in value. So that's a good way to watch things, is you wait a couple of sets and get what you need for standard sets. Usually some of the stuff is going to drop. Others, if it's played multiple formats, it won't drop. So Lager Stash never really dropped that much in price. Still kind of where it was, which is, it is what it is. That's a really super strong card from New Capenna. Other cards like Ledger Shredder, people really slept on that one, or the Unlicensed Hearse, and those cards have taken off in value because they're being played in multiple formats. They're really tearing it up in Pioneer, seeing a little bit of Modern play, seeing a ton of Standard play, and they're pretty good in the Eternal formats too. So you just have to time purchases very carefully. So usually I don't wait too long to get the singles. I wait till the week after release and start picking stuff up. That's usually when a lot of the really heavy staples have dropped. Those are going to go back up. Staples always go back up. Professor had a really great video about that with the Double Masters, part 2, or whatever they're calling this. Double Masters 2022, I guess, is what they're officially calling it, versus Double Masters The Return, or Revenge of Double Masters, or actual Commander Legends. Point is, even though you will see a drop in the price for staples, eventually they do go back up if they're played in multiple formats. So just keep an eye out for that. So, well, we want to thank you for joining us today. Hopefully this was a fun deck tech for you, and you can kind of see some of the issues with building from a sealed pool depending on your set. So because of this set, it was a little bit more difficult to build. I could have put in smaller creatures and things for the backgrounds and whatnot, but there was a very limited card pool as far as creatures go. And I mean, I could do a little bit of things, but I built this deck with the intention of making it from a sealed into a full deck. And so having that Luxior, that's a really important one. You could also put in like a Treasure Mage to find it. All sorts of things to find that particular artifact, because get the artifact, slap it onto Tasha, and then all of those commander creature cards matter because they would apply to the Oathbreaker here. So anyway, we want to thank you for joining us today. If you're on the lookout for cards, go check out our friends over at Geekified. You can find them at geekifiediowa.com. And if you want to know when we're doing our next video, go ahead and subscribe, hit that bell notification, and join us in the Discord, which you should do because we do fun stuff in there. So again, we want to thank you for joining us. That's all we have today. And with that, our meeting is now adjourned. But we hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.